This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who, at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. More than just news this week, history this week. The IG report, which was touted by a lot of conservative organizations and media as being the be-all and end-all, turned out to be a giant dud, just as I predicted. I hate to say this, but nobody knows Washington, D.C. better than I do after 40 years in the trenches, 40 years in the swamp, fighting the alligators that swim around, that sliver around, that have gotten to the point that our country is almost going under for the count. This IG report is a sham of a mockery of a sham, as Woody Allen would say. It's been, in fact, worse than what we even expected, because you've got Hillary Clinton, you've got Bill Clinton, you've got James Comey, former FBI director, you've got the Lovebirds, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, you've got the Obamas, not just Barack, but Michelle and others, George Soros, and yes, of course, Robert Mueller, all let off the hook. There are a few facts that have come out that had previously been withheld from the congressional committees of Devin Nunes and others, in terms of how these FBI agents and the underbelly of the FBI was not only making all-out effort to let Hillary Clinton off the hook, but ramping up to destroy the president of the United States. This is unconscionable. This is illegal. This is criminal. And it's time for the president to take matters into his own hands. As I've said many other times, this is a president that has great instincts. This is a president who's a fighter. This is a president who, like Larry Klayman, actually enjoys the fight. You have to be born with that. You have to want that. You know, as we say in the lead into the show, I'm the son of a meat packer. I know how to slice and dice. This country needs to be taken apart and put back in the vision of our founding fathers. The president now needs to do it. He needs to take control. Rudy Giuliani's having a great time on TV. You know, he's a nice man. He did a good job as mayor of New York. But his time has come and passed. All he does is spew forth attorney-client privileged information, thinking that he's God on TV. He's leading the president down the primrose path. You've got Jay Sekulow. He's a very good religious rights lawyer, but he has little to no criminal defense experience. And you've got others out there. I don't know who they are, but they're unheard of and unseen. The president needs, number one, to fire Rod Rosenstein, to have somebody that will take control of the Justice Department, because Jeff Sessions, the current attorney general, and he should be fired too immediately, is not in control. All he does is immigration. Well, you know, that's good. Okay, we can have another deputy attorney general handle that. The president can order what he needs to have done, handle that with experts at the Department of Homeland Security. We don't need Jeff Sessions there hiding under his desk, afraid that he's going to be indicted by Robert Mueller himself for alleged Russian collusion and obstruction of justice. But this IG report is very clever in an evil way, because it attempts to checkmate President Trump. It tends to say, okay, maybe you didn't obstruct justice in firing Comey, but we have found nothing, the Justice Department, with regard to Hillary and Bill Clinton, James Comey, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, the Obamas, the former directors of national intelligence, James Clapper, and of course the ever evil John Brennan, who was the former CIA director, John Podesta, who not only looks like a rat, but acts like a rat, the campaign chairman of Hillary Clinton's campaign, formerly White House chief of staff. I deposed him during my years at Judicial Watch. I also had him on the witness stand for the first email scandal for a million emails going missing to Judicial Watch, Ken Starr, and Congress. These are the sleazes who are being let off scot-free. And of course, why did this matter wind up in front of the Inspector General? Why wasn't there a special counsel appointed by the Attorney General? Why wasn't there even an internal Justice Department grand jury impaneled through Justice Department so-called career prosecutors who really aren't neutral either? Believe me, 97%, as Newt Gingrich has pointed out, are pro-Clinton, pro-Obama, like is everybody else in Washington, D.C., for that matter, with few exceptions. This was done because this was to let the steam, to take the monkey off the back of Jeff Sessions. Well, you know what? There's no monkey to take off the back. The guy's a monkey himself. He's like the three monkeys: hear no evil, see no evil, do no evil. And that's why the president needs to step in and take control. He's the head of the executive branch of government. He is, in effect, the head of the Justice Department. Do what needs to be done. The American people now see what you're able to do, what you're able to accomplish with North Korea, with Iran, with illegal immigration, with getting the country back rolling again economically, with taking strong steps on trade. And he's not a protectionist. He's a free trader like I am, but he realizes and he knows how to use leverage. And the criticism this week of him flattering Kim Jong-un, that's exactly what he was doing. He was picking Kim Jong-un's pockets at the time. He uses guile. He uses technique. He knows what he's doing. He may not always be the most diplomatic person in the world, but we don't have time for diplomacy in terms of words. We need deeds. We need to save this president. And by saving the president, we'll be saving ourselves, because the next president, if it's not Donald Trump, even if it's an establishment Republican type, will be even worse than Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. We see the Jekylls of the Republican Party that are out there today, the establishment hacks. Paul Ryan, fortunately, he's leaving, but he's doing a lot of damage before he's leaving. He's overriding the president on DACA as we speak. We see Mitch McConnell, who sits there twiddling his thumbs. We see Bob Corker, who gave us that ridiculous legislation which allowed for the enactment, in effect, of the Iran deal, a vicious, vile person. We see John McCain. We see Songbird John McCain, who a lot of people think broke at the Hanoi Hilton and gave confidential information to the North Vietnamese during the Vietnam War, on his deathbed, getting even nastier, getting even more hateful towards Donald Trump. He should beg for forgiveness right now rather than go after our president and try to destroy him. They've had their differences, but put the country first. This is what we're going to get. And if that's not bad enough, think about Cory Booker as president. Think about Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas as president. Think about others. Bernie Sanders, okay, the socialist who went to Moscow on his honeymoon as president. We need to save this republic by saving this president. And that's why you need to support Freedom Watch, because we are now your Justice Department. You have no Justice Department. The IG report confirms that. At Judicial Watch, I did a lot of things. I brought hard-hitting cases for 10 years. FBI Filegate, Chinagate, we triggered that. Travelgate, other different gates, okay? IRS gate. But Judicial Watch changed when I left because it's not run by a lawyer. Tom Fitton's not a lawyer. They get documents. That's great. The press wants the documents. They put him on TV. He pounds his chest. He's a big man on campus. But the reality is that you have to lay it on the line. It's not enough to get documents. We now have to impanel citizens' grand juries. I'm the only one that has the guts to do that. I'm the only one who ever had a court rule that President Bill Clinton committed the crime. We need to bring these grand juries. We have the right to do it. Justice Antonin Scalia, back in 1992, in a case, United States versus Williams, said grand juries belong to the people, not the other three branches of government. We can impanel grand juries from voter rolls. We can indict Hillary Clinton. We can indict Bill Clinton. We can hold everyone accountable, including Robert Mueller. We can then try them in front of a citizen's court. We'll get a retired patriotic judge to do it. We can even have petit juries, regular juries. We will convict them. We will have them sentenced. And we even have the power to do citizens' arrests, and we will do it peacefully and legally. You know, it wasn't too long ago that Congress created the Justice Department. It was a noble idea at the time. But look at what's happened to the Justice Department, my alma mater. It's become the Department of Injustice and Corruption. It is working against the interests of the American people. It is part of the deep state, along with the intelligence agencies who are out of control, run by Clinton and Obama loyalists to this day. Mike Pompeo, I disagree with on the mass surveillance. He thinks that's fine. I don't. But he's doing a great job as Secretary of State. I'll commend him for that. And I'll apologize for saying that he was an idiot. I don't think he is. I think he's a smart man. But we cannot have an intelligence community which spies on the American people as it spied on President Trump. This is dangerous, and this is keeping us down. If this had occurred, as I've said many times, during the days leading up to the American Revolution in 1776, our founding fathers, before they even got to Philadelphia, my birthplace, would have been picked up, arrested, and executed before they even got there. So this is what we're working against. We, the people, must rise up. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. Sign our citizens' petitions to have me named special counsel. We need 100,000 signatures. We now have 25,000. Please join our citizen army. Get our free newsletters. Contribute generously to our cause. We are all you have left. We are your Paul Revere. We are your John Adams. We are your Thomas Jefferson. We are your George Washington. Join our army. We'll be camping at Valley Forge, not in the cold, but in the warmth of God himself, because God will allow us, with his divine grace, to rise up and save this country. And we need to do it fast because it's sinking fast. And this IG report is the perfect example of this clever cover-up, which is even being promoted by conservative media outlets saying this is significant. It's not significant. It's a cover-up. It's a sham of a sham of a sham. I'll be right back with more at Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. This is a particularly important show because we're at a crossroads.
Dangerous.
You don't hear, use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
We're going to talk with Pat Caddell in the next segment. He was the former pollster strategist for Jimmy Carter. He appreciates the power of mass surveillance, the intelligence agencies, what they've done to pervert our legal system and to pervert our government. And this week, we may have seen another example of that. We have a decision by a judge who previously made a couple good rulings for Freedom Watch and Larry Klayman and the American people who enjoined the mass surveillance of the Obama intelligence agencies against the American people. That gave rise to the USA Freedom Act, which was supposed to resolve the unconstitutional violation of Fourth Amendment rights and gathering information, not just about Supreme Court justices, other judges, prominent businessmen like Donald Trump, yours truly, Larry Klayman, but all of us. This judge is Richard J. Leon. He issued an outrageous decision this week, which allows the merger of AT&T and Time Warner. You know, I was a Justice Department trial lawyer, prosecutor in the antitrust division of the Justice Department, going back to the late 1970s and early 80s. I was on the trial team that broke up the monopoly of AT&T, created competition. Again, the lead into this show tells you that. That's why we have all of our cell phones and all the opportunities we have today in telecommunications, because there wasn't any competition before. You had to buy all phones from AT&T. All service was AT&T. Well, now this judge is allowing for another concentration in the industry, allowing AT&T to get together with Time Warner. By the way, not coincidentally, Time Warner owns CNN, the Clinton News Network, the Communist News Network, whatever you want to call it, the vile news network. But that aside, why is it that Leon, who said at the end of his opinion that there would be, in effect, hell to pay if an appeal was taken because he didn't want AT&T to have to spend more on attorney's fees, $1 trillion plus company, he's worried about AT&T spending $1 trillion on attorney's fees if the government takes an appeal. Now, in this case, I agree with the government. We need less concentration, not more concentration in the telecommunications industry. We need more competition. But why did Leon flip? Why did a conservative judge, you've heard me criticize leftist judges like Amy Berman Jackson and Colleen Kohler-Catelli, the worst judge in American history, in my opinion, and others. You've heard me criticize them, but I'm criticizing now a conservative judge. And this is a judge who recently dismissed, it's up on appeal, our continuing cases against Obama's intelligence agencies because the mass surveillance continues. The USA Freedom Act did not end the problem. We know the surveillance of the Trump campaign, of the president himself, of his family and people around him. We know that spies were embedded in his campaign. This has not stopped. They think they're above the law. Why is it? Because we had learned a while back through a whistleblower that Leon himself was subject to the mass surveillance. He was one of the judges. And what do they have on him? They have a lot on him, probably. And that's why he's flipped. And that is the difficulty that the American people find ourselves in today. We live under a Orwellian state. We live under a police state. Do anything that gets out of line with the deep state establishment, and it will try to take you down. It will cut your head off, and it might even kill you. And this is why you have this IG report. Probably the IG knew he'd be taken down if he wrote anything that was honest. His recommendations, which are no recommendations at all, coupled with the FBI director, Christopher Wray, saying, I'm just going to send all this to the Office of Professional Responsibility. Why don't you send it to McDonald's and have a cup of coffee? Okay, you'll have more effect debating what happened at McDonald's than you will with the Office of Professional Responsibility run by Clinton Obama loyalists, as most of the Department of Justice is. This is the risk. So, yes, they have something on Judge Leon. They had something on Chief Justice John Roberts when he flipped on Obamacare. They had something on everybody. It's a giant file gate that I pursued while I was at Judicial Watch and now are pursuing other things at Freedom Watch. Freedom Watch doing what Judicial Watch used to do, hard-hitting cases. So this is why you have to tell it like it is. I don't care if you're a leftist judge or a conservative judge. They're nearly all compromised. There are a few exceptions like Judge Royce Lamber, like former Judge Stanley Sporkin, Emmett Sullivan, who I take my hat off. He's a Democrat. He's an honest man. There are some out there, but you can count them on one hand. And this is why we need to reform the legal system, and we've seen why we need to do it, particularly with regard to this IG report, because it let everybody off the hook. It is a sham of a travesty of a sham. And we'll be right back with Pat Caddell because he understands this. He lived during this period, and the American people need to be educated at the evil that we face. We'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with Pat Caddell, somebody who I admire a great deal because, it's funny. When I was a student of Emory Law School, I was going to school, obviously, in Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta's a great town. I got wrapped up into Jimmy Carter's presidential campaign. I thought he'd be a breath of fresh air. He was an attractive guy. He was articulate, thoughtful. I supported him. I was a volunteer. That's probably the last time, in fact, it was the last time I ever voted for a Democrat for president. After that, it turned me in a more conservative direction after, in my view, he almost destroyed the country with inflation over 20%, and of course the debacle in Iran and everywhere else. He's a smart guy. He's an intelligent guy, but he wasn't a good president. But you have Pat Caddell, who was his pollster, who was his strategist, who was his guru, much like me, who believed in him. And I'm not asking Pat to turn against him right now. But Pat's unique because he's always taken an independent line. I mean, he doesn't take just the Democratic Party line. He does what he thinks is best for the president, is in power at the time, and also for the country. He's a true patriot. He's also a person who was a writer, I understood, on West Wing, that famous TV series with President Bartlett, of course, left wing. It was kind of like President Clinton at the time, but they created this character, Harry Claypool, of Freedom Watch, which was Larry Klayman, who was the founder of Judicial Watch at the time. And it was pretty accurate in terms of the way they presented it. They poked fun at me. I don't mind that. Going into the mainstream, it's good to educate the American people. But I want to introduce you to Pat Caddell because I think he's really important in getting an independent take on this Office of Inspector General report that came out yesterday. It's been heavily sold by Fox News and other conservative outlets as being perhaps the be-all and end-all of justice, and it turned out to be a giant dud, in my opinion, and let everybody else off the hook, and typical of the way Washington twists the establishment. The establishment, of course, twists Washington. It works both ways. And, of course, the Inspector General is the Justice Department, and it, in my view, took the steam out of the push to get a special counsel. That was the intent of it. So, Pat, give me your take on it. I just gave you a little bit of mine, and I'll weigh in afterwards.
Yeah, I believe that that it was done. If you go through as much as I've been through, which is, it's a lot to get through. It is page after page of indictable crimes. It is a frightening. The conclusion at the end where it says, well, we're not sure, nothing had to do with politics. I mean, the entire thing is a political cabal going on in the FBI and the Justice Department. There are other aspects I didn't get to. But, to me, it was summed up in the smoking gun. Will Stopping, which is the head of counterintelligence, not some minor FBI agent, the head of counterintelligence who began the investigation, and of course Comey, who was a disaster. But most importantly, I believe that it is, that it shines the light on the fact that we had government agencies. I've seen all kinds of influences in politics, but I have never seen where the Justice Department and political, and the non-political departments, the criminal departments like the FBI, putting not their finger on the scale, but their fist in trying to influence the election one way or the other. And it is, to me, a frightening description of our democracy. And it does require, because I'd like to see the draft before it was edited, the rough draft, because I doubt it said there was no politics going on. But it is chock full of stuff, and we can talk about some of the little specifics we see. But it is just page after page. And nor does it, I don't think it gets in, I don't know, you would know better, Larry, whether it gets into the Steele stuff yet or anything else, and many other aspects. But it does beg for either the gentleman in Utah who was supposed to be investigating the investigators and so forth, or a special counsel to get into this. It really undermines the Mueller operation, and there are many things you can say about it, but I do think it is significant, even if the mainstream media, some of them are trying to say, oh, no crimes here, so no problems, just like with Hillary and her server.
That is significant as well, because while presenting facts, as I said, it lets the Clintons off the hook, it lets Comey off the hook, it lets the lovebird Strzok and Page off the hook, it lets the heads of the intelligence agencies under Obama off the hook, and it lets Obama and his wife Michelle off the hook. They obviously were behind all of this, and there's evidence of that in that report. And what I believe it was intended to do was to take the steam out of the heat in the kitchen that was pushing Sessions or Rod Rosenstein to appoint a special counsel. Now, we saw at the end of the day yesterday, Christopher Wray, the FBI director. Up to now, he's kind of looked like a kid, like a deer in the headlights, but he's learned how to speak. And that's good. Okay, you need to communicate in Washington, D.C. and throughout the country and the world. But he says, okay, here's the remedy. I'm going to refer this report to the Office of Professional Responsibility. Well, give me a break. You know what that is? Yeah. That's like a bar association, okay? And bar associations are very leftist generally. They are not going to take any action here against the Clintons. These are the internal people at the Justice Department. They're 97% pro-Clinton, pro-Obama. These people will be given a slap on the wrist. Maybe a few of them, maybe Strzok will have to resign. They'll probably let him keep his pension. Paige, she'll go off and have some new lover or something to that effect. But this is not justice. And this is a dual system of justice where the elites reign and we, the people, are left with the crumbs, and we're prosecuted for things that they walk off scot-free. So to me, as I've said before, like Woody Allen said, I'm a fan of Woody Allen in terms of his humor, a sham of a mockery of a travesty of a sham. This is not bringing about justice. And yes, somebody perverted this report. I don't think we'll ever see the draft version. Certainly can't get it under FOIA. You can only get a final decision. That'll never come out, particularly with all these Clinton and Obama judges on the bench today. Get your thoughts.
Well, I think that in many, I'm not sure I'd go as far as you. I think there is stuff there, but I don't think it solves much. I think it puts much more on the table. I am concerned that there's not, we really don't know. For instance, I do think there's this thing about it maybe on the timing of the Comey, how the Comey letter, which was written months before the investigation was completed, exonerating her, the relationship with her and with him, and the Attorney General, who was following the footsteps of Eric Holder as a Obama operative. I do agree entirely with you. This, in the end, all of this traces back to the White House, the Obama White House. Their political operation, Mr. Rhodes, Mr. Piper, and the president himself in their involvement in this. I've always said if there was a real Russian threat to the country, then he was negligent in a very serious way and not coming to the country earlier and saying there's a real threat here, or going to Trump and telling him this, whatever. But this only occurred after the election. And Mueller is a product of Comey's firing, which, if anything, is justified. The 500 pages justifies getting rid of that egomaniac, that man who has no sense. It's dangerous how his own perspective is so in another universe of his excellence and holiness. There's no doubt. Look, I'm terrified by some of the things that we still don't know about the unmasking, the tripling of people who were subjected to the NSA database, which we know tripled between 2013 and 2016, as though there were suddenly not 10,000 but 30,000 dangerous people in the country. I bet you, I know for a fact that, I have no doubt that those people were political.
Oh, yeah, I'm in it, Pat. I'm in it. I'm sure you're in it, too, because you turned against the powers to be in telling the truth. You're in it for sure. I went to Comey. I went to James Baker, the general counsel, to investigate this mass surveillance. I was told he was going to investigate it. He deep-sixed it. Why did he deep-six it? Because the FBI was engaged in it as well. They had information not just about the president when he was a businessman, but about the Supreme Court Justice himself, John Roberts, 156 other judges and other Supreme Court justices, prominent businessmen, yours truly, you, Pat, I'm sure you're in it. It was a giant file gate, and they were using it. You want to know why there's some strange decisions that sometimes come out of the courts and the Supreme?
Well, that's the reason we have Obamacare. Suddenly, Roberts, when you look at his initial decision, there was a concerted effort to drive him. You'll never eat, and not only you'll never eat in this town, we're going to get you if you don't uphold Obamacare, which he was originally not upholding and then does, on grounds that were so specious it was unbelievable. I believe they use these things. I believe it is a use of threatening power. And it is scary. And let me just say, I've been in many presidential campaigns, and I went through the Nixon campaign. I was the youngest person on his enemies list in 1972. I went through with in 1980 Debategate, the NSC informed person that was there, partly because of one of Kennedy's operatives. There's a long, bizarre story to that were spying. But I've never seen an instance where the government agency itself was involved. And when I think of a campaign, when people say, oh, there's nothing to think about, Spygate. No, excuse me. If I were in a presidential campaign and found out that the FBI was putting informants in my campaign, I would freak out. I do freak out because that is a real threat to democracy itself. Don't kid ourselves. It is. And watching these so-called civil libertarians of the left who've deserted all civil liberties when it comes to trying to get Trump or whatever. I'm like you, Larry. I mean, I've admired y'all because when you set up Judicial Watch stuff, is you went after everybody. You didn't, the Democrat, Republican, whatever, to get to the truth. I believe the country needs that. What we don't have now is that. And what we have is a system that is threatening the democracy itself. This deep state stuff, or whatever you want to call it. Look, when you have Brennan, who is nothing but a political hack, groomed by Tom Donilon, the man responsible most for the cover-up in Benghazi, and who I know very, very well, and you look at the stuff going on with the CIA director, Mr. Clapper, Mr. Perjury, in front of the Senate. How can you believe anything these people say? They are in the business of deciding that they should decide who should be in power and who should not. And that is dangerous. The American people own this democracy, not these bureaucratic hacks and these people who misuse their powers. Their legal
You're right,
powers.
Pat, and absolutely right, and that's why you are a true patriot, because you're telling it like it is. We have reached a crossroads. I believe this IG report has put us into a higher state. We've been in a revolutionary state for quite a while, but nothing's happened. I think something's going to explode. I don't want to see it explode. But there are a lot of people out there that are looking at what's going on right now, and they're saying they have no government anymore. It's broken away from us. We better take control like we did in 1776. I think we're headed in that direction. I'm trying to head it off with citizens' grand juries, with lawsuits. Mueller has to release all of his communications with the media by September 4th, as ordered by Judge Emmett Sullivan. Those are going to show grand jury leaks, I believe. But we are at a crossroads. I'm sure you probably agree with this. This IG report, I think, is the last straw.
I think we are. I said in 2013, we were a pre-revolutionary moment. We saw part of that in 2016. There's more to come. The question in this country is who is sovereign? Are the American people, or is it the establishment institutions who feather their own nest?
Well said, Pat. We've run out of time. I'm going to have you back because you're very insightful and you come from a perspective that American people need to hear. Thank you. We'll be right back with more from Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
We've arrived at the verdict section of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. No suspense here. We know where we're going, or we know where we're headed, which is right into the tank. We're headed into Hades. We're headed into hell. We're headed into the end of our country. And the IG report is a turning point in our history. There was great anticipation. Fox News and others hyped it. They're continuing to hype it. They need to get those ratings. They're beating CNN, MSNBC combined. I'm thankful that there is a Fox News, but I'm not thankful that it shades things. Judge Napolitano, who's on Fox News, said it right. He said, my colleagues oversold this. Well, you know what? Now we need to basically give the facts of life as to where this country is right now. The IG report is a turning point because it shows that the deep state, the Justice Department, has totally broken away from the American people. We're on our own. No one is being held accountable. The president is our last hope to step up to the plate as the head of the executive branch. He's the head of the Justice Department. He needs to immediately appoint a special counsel to hold Hillary and Bill Clinton accountable, to hold Barack and Michelle Obama accountable, to hold James Comey accountable, to hold Robert Mueller accountable, to hold the former intelligence chiefs Brennan and Clapper accountable, to hold John Podesta, that guy who looks like a rat and is a rat, who surfaced yesterday, former campaign chairman for Hillary Clinton, who was White House chief of staff during the Clinton years, as I said, who I had on the witness stand, an evil, evil, evil person, to hold the Harold Ickeses, the others, the George Stephanopoulos, and everybody else finally accountable for the crimes they have committed against the American people. And that's why I need to be appointed special counsel. If not me, then find somebody else. But I don't know of anybody who will do what I'll do. I don't know anybody who will risk his life, pledge his meager fortune. It's not a fortune at all. I have very little. And who will pledge his sacred honor to take this country apart and put it back in the image of our founding fathers. Because if we don't do it now, we are not going to have a country much longer. We've reached the point of no return. And this IG report tells you that, is that everybody, including Fox News, has egg on its face. And it's not enough anymore for my former group to come forward with facts, for Tom Fitton to pound his chest to say, okay, look how great I am, give legal opinions when he's not a lawyer on TV, and raise money hand over fist when we're not bringing hard-hitting cases. And that's why Freedom Watch is bringing forth a citizens' grand jury. And you'll see that just in the next few weeks. I got a few things to do. I'm going to crank it up, and we're going to get it going again. And this time, we're going to take it to the nth degree. We're going to panel grand juries from voter rolls neutrally. We're going to have a neutral judge. We're going to have a neutral jury. We're going to try and convict the Clintons. We're going to try and convict Comey. We're going to try and convict Mueller and all of the other criminals, and then have them sentenced. And then we will exercise our power of citizens' arrest peacefully and legally. And if we can't get a judge to execute on our indictments and convictions, then the American people need to do it themselves.
2 minutes.
Not in a violent way, but in a legal way. We have that right. We didn't have a Justice Department until about 100 years ago. We did it on our own. We have to do it on our own again, because we don't have a Justice Department. But the president can solve that. He can fire Jeff Sessions. He can fire Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein. He can appoint me as special counsel. Go to freedomwatchusa.org to sign the petition. Write him, email him. We need to get his attention. His lawyers are not serving him well. Rudy Giuliani is a very nice man, but his time has come and passed. He's doing more harm than good, and we need a special counsel. So I want you to go to freedomwatchusa.org. We also need to crank up our citizens' grand juries. We need to bring more lawsuits. Judge Emmett Sullivan, an honest Democrat-appointed judge, ordered that Mueller has to produce all of his emails to the media by September 4th. These will show, in all likelihood, grand jury leaks, which are criminal. He'll be gone at that point. So it's not enough just to get documents. We got to push forward. We've got to bring this country back to the great country that it once was, and we need to support our president because he is our last hope in terms of a president. We're going to be back next week. In the meantime, go to our website, join our citizens' army, ramp it up. We are in a revolutionary state. This is Larry Klayman, special prosecutor. We wish you Godspeed, and we ask God to save the nation. With your help and his divine grace, we can do it. God bless you all.